drboystv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. Today, I'm going to give you a breakdown of this crazy lawsuit. There's a lawsuit against Black Lives Matter that was filed by Black Lives Matter. And I'm going to explain that in a second. And we're going to talk about racism and financial shenanigans that pop up when you have activist movements that don't really represent the people that they claim to represent. I'm going to break all this down for you. So get comfortable, buckle up your seatbelt. We're going to get started on drboystv.com right now.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones too late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to drboystv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and shout out the city that you're from. I see that we have I am Jalinda Blake out of Boston, Massachusetts, and Jermaine out of Camden. I see you. A great basketball player by the name of Milt Wagner came out of Camden many, many years ago. Look him up. I grew up and I was a big admirer and a big fan of his. Snack 79 out of Fort Worth. What's going on, brother? How are you? The Traveling Man out of Queens, New York. I see Lovey Love. She said, "Hey, boys." Hey, Lovey Love. How you doing, girl? Letha Chandler. Good evening to you, too. Kevin Lockhart. Peace, blessings, and prosperity right back at your brother. Eddie Johnson, etc. Now, also, give me a yes in the chat if you can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm actually here near Black Wall Street. I've been, if you go to my Instagram is The Real Boyce Watkins, The Real Boyce Watkins. Make sure you look for that blue check mark because as I've told you guys before, I have to constantly announce to you that there are a lot of fake accounts out here, a lot of fake people that will hit you up in your inbox and pretend to be me. I will not be the person in your inbox. I will not give you a WhatsApp phone number to call or anything like that. So just be really careful. I don't want anybody to get taken by these people. But if you go to Instagram, look for The Real Boyce Watkins, look for the blue check mark. I've been doing my Black Wall Street content all day. And let me just tell y'all today, being on Black Wall Street here in Tulsa, my brother is you could say he's a fund manager. Let's just say that he's in that space. And he brought me out to Tulsa this week and I had a great time with the family. And I really learned a lot about Black Wall Street that people just don't know. There's so many things about Black Wall Street that people don't know. And we're going to talk about that later. But today I want to jump in and talk about Black Lives Matter. So as I begin, first of all, I want to say also welcome to Zephyr Tolbert out of Fort Myers, Mike Jones. Mike Jones, who? Mike Jones. I had to do that. Every time I hear the name Mike Jones, you know I got to do that. Gianni Whitaker from Nashville, Tennessee. Antonio from Atlanta. Robert out of Atlanta. Hello, Juanito Nelson. Good to see you from Covington, Tennessee. Tiger out of Lynchburg. Ron Farmer, B1 to you too. Felicia Wade, that's my grandmother's name. I love you too, Felicia. Out of Fort Smith, Arizona. All right, so let's get started. How many of you, give me a yes or no, how many of you heard about this lawsuit? There's a big, ugly lawsuit involving Black Lives Matter, where Black Lives Matter is being sued by Black Lives Matter, which is kind of crazy. It's, if you watch, my wife and I watched this show called House of the Dragon, and it's about this family called the Targaryens that had a lot of power in Game of Thrones or whatever, like 300 years ago. And they ended up, the family falls apart because they were fighting each other. The only people that could bring them down was each other. And so Black Lives Matter looks a little bit like the Targaryens, where there's just a lot of weirdness, a lot of chaos going on. And this is stuff we've been talking about for a few years, actually, in terms of the fact that a lot of people got off the Black Lives Matter train a while back. A lot of Black folks I know aren't real comfortable with the agenda with Black Lives Matter. We did a whole extensive, probably 2-hour long podcast episode maybe 2 or 3 years ago where we went through the Black Lives Matter website very carefully, and we were looking specifically to see what they represented, and they were speaking heavily on a lot of gay transgender issues. Not that those are bad things. This is not anti-gay. If you're gay, you're welcome here. We love you too. But we didn't see a lot of things in there that were representing Black men, We didn't see anything in there that was representing the black family. So it became very clear for a lot of people. I'm not saying everybody should feel this way, because I think that term Black Lives Matter is one we can agree on. In fact, let's just start there. Let's start with the basic foundational idea that the term Black Lives Matter is a good term. So give me a yes or no in the chat. Yes or no. Do you believe Black Lives Matter? Give me a yes if you believe that Black Lives Matter. And I'm going to talk about the lawsuit in a minute, I promise, but I got to lay the right foundation so we can have the right conversation. So give me a yes. Let's just start with the basics. How many of you believe that Black Lives Matter? Give me a yes. Well, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to say yes. I believe Black Lives Matter when a black person is killed by a cop. I believe Black Lives Matter when a black person is killed by a runaway dog. I believe Black Lives Matter when black people are killed by other black people. I believe Black Lives Matter when a black person is killed in the suburbs. I believe Black Lives Matter when a black person is killed in the hood. I believe Black Lives Matter when black people are killed by Trump supporters. I believe Black Lives Matter when black people are killed by liberals. And I think that that's really important to start there, because that term Black Lives Matter is a universally agreed upon concept that anybody in the B1 community, Black first, where we're Black first, we put our community first. Anybody in the B1 community already knew Black Lives Matter. And so what happened with Black Lives Matter as an organization, in my view, is that this term kind of got hijacked. They kind of took this term that all of us can agree on, this rallying cry, this point that, most people aren't going to disagree with, and they ran with it and they made it into something other than what a lot of us can relate to. And so effectively, Black Lives Matter, the organization has a heavily, I think all three of the founders were trained Marxists, and there's nothing wrong with Marxism. I'm not a Marxist, though. Marxism is a pretty far left ideology. It is one that has a lot of really intelligent critiques of capitalism. Karl Marx, I've studied a little bit of what he believes, and I think his critiques of capitalism are right on point. And I think every black person should understand these things. But I think we should come short of becoming Marxist, and I think we should come short of becoming capitalist. I really think that when you're talking about black wealth, black economics, developing black economic systems, I think that our goal should be something where we establish an ethical set of business models that allow us to achieve the freedom and sovereignty that we need, so we can escape this racism that other people are trying to oppress us with. And I'm really feeling passionate about this today, because I'm sitting right here, right near Black Wall Street. I was right on Greenwood all day long for a really long time. And there was a young brother named Cody, who had some dreads. He was a smart brother. He really just gave us a great tour, and we learned so much. And I highly recommend, if you come to Tulsa, go look for Cody at the Wall Street. I think it's called the Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge. Look for Cody and let Cody give you a tour. I think that brother's worth listening to. So anyway, long story short, that starts the foundation of the whole conversation. So a lot of y'all weren't really down with Black Lives Matter after a while, once you started feeling the agenda was a little bit weird. And then here's what happened. So Black Lives Matter becomes this big term that's being used everywhere. So every white person on the planet who doesn't want to be a villain anymore decides, okay, I want to give to black people. So what do? They start making donations to Black Lives Matter. Now, this is what perks up my ears, because you guys know my PhD is in finance. So I'm the money guy. I understand money. I understand the power of money. And I'm really paying close attention to how money starts to wiggle its way into the equation. It always does. It always does. And it's not just the power that the money has itself. The money itself has an inherent power to change people's incentives. Money can affect people's behavior. Money can affect the power dynamic. But also, it's not just the power of the money. It's the power that created the money. It's where did the money come from? How did the money get there? So effectively, what happened with Black Lives Matter was they sort of gained this unfortunate, perhaps somewhat deserved, I don't know, reputation for sort of leveraging. Pay attention now. Financially leveraging pain and suffering in the black community for the economic benefit of a group of hippies that wanted to go and just do, whatever white liberals tell them to do. And I'm not saying that there weren't genuine people in the organization. I believe that the people who supported Black Lives Matter really believed in the cause. I believe they were doing the best they knew how. I'm really kind of looking at the leadership, because when the money came into the equation, you started seeing things sort of change. If I'm not mistaken, that was when they sort of had this split off, where they kind of had the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, where they said, okay, this is the part that's going to manage the money, but the rest of y'all can still go out and do the work, but we're going to manage the money over here. Y'all go out and raise hell. Y'all go out and protest. Y'all go crazy. Find out which black man got shot this week, and let's go ahead and do our best to capitalize off of every incident in America that involves a white person and a black person. Any incident you find, don't look at the facts. Fuck the facts don't matter. Facts don't matter. Just find any incident you can find, and let's go raise money off that. Y'all go raise hell, and then when you raise money, you can give the money to us, and then we'll go manage the money separate from you. And it's so honestly, as an outsider kind of looking in, it started looking a little bit like pimping. I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. That's what the pimps do with the hoes. They send the hoes out to do the work, and then they bring the money back and give it to Big Daddy, and Big Daddy runs off and does what he wants. And so with Black Lives Matter, it kind of became like a pimp and hoeing kind of operation. It was fascinating to me. Here's the thing. This is what you got to pay attention to. It's fascinating. It's real easy to be a Marxist or a socialist when you ain't got no money. It's real easy to believe in all these egalitarian values of communism, socialism, Marxism, and all these other isms when ain't no money to split up. But once the money kind of comes in, studies show. Remember, I studied financial psychology. My wife is a therapist. There are numerous studies that show that money changes your personality. Has anybody ever seen this? Tell me, give me a yes or no. Have you ever seen like three broke people go into business together, and that everything's like easy peasy, and all the agreements are simple, and you can settle everything on the handshake, and everybody's super generous. But then watch a little money come in the door. Watch what happens when a couple of dollars start trickling in, and that little business starts making. They make their first like 20 grand in a day. You ever seen that happen? And the next thing you know, everybody's fighting. Everybody's got egos now. Everybody's got their own personal agendas and interests. It happens with music groups all the time. When New Edition, they were a bunch of humble little kids, and then they became world famous. Suddenly, Bobby Brown wants to take his shirt off at every concert. And suddenly, everybody's thinking about their own individual fans, right? That arrogance. Thank you, Eric. That's a good term. Arrogance can pop in. Greed can pop in, selfishness can pop in. And what was fascinating to me when I looked at the Black Lives Matter organization is it almost felt to me like I literally saw how money turned a group of Marxists into a group of capitalists. they they started understanding, hey, wait a minute, money is powerful, money is important. It's no different from like if you have three guys that are best buddies, and then a pretty girl walks in the room, then suddenly they become competitors with each other because they're trying to figure out who's going to talk to the girl first. So the point is to say that this is what I saw with Black Lives Matter, and the infighting didn't surprise me. It really was one of those things also where I had to get off board with some of this because I want to. In fact, I'm gonna prove to you why I couldn't follow along with what they were doing. Let me ask y'all a question. Most of you, all of you are black in here, I assume. Maybe a couple white people in here. We love you too. Just so you know, we don't exclude anybody. I don't believe in being anti-nothing. I ain't got time to be anti-white. I'm just very pro-black. That's all I am. So I'm not gonna get mad at you if your spouse is white or something. I don't think I'm not that kind of person. So let's just be clear about that. All right. So how many of you, if you're pro-black, how many of you saw one nickel from Black Lives Matter? Black Lives Matter raised all this money. I think the number was like over $100 million, or at least 90 million. It was a lot of money. A lot of y'all got businesses. A lot of y'all have bills to pay. A lot of y'all see poverty in your communities. How many of you saw one nickel from the Black Lives Matter money? White people got, PPP loans and stuff, and, grants from the government. How many of y'all got, literally saw like a nickel? Did anybody in here, I'm looking for my first yes. Somebody give me a yes and tell me, did anybody get one nickel from the Black Lives Matter movement and all that money that they raised? I mean, this is supposed to be for black people, right? How many of you got any money from, I'm just seeing no's. I mean, this is shocking. This is shocking. So here's the deal. That money did not go to the black community. That money did not go to the black community. That money went to the overseers. The way politics works in America, which is very unfortunate. And I promise you, I'm gonna get to the lawsuit. I have to have the right conversation around this. I can't have a stupid, quick little conversation. But But American politics is a situation where black folks have to be as politically intelligent as you can be. I'm not here to tell you what you should believe. I'm not here to tell you who to vote for. I've never done that. You've listened to me for years. I've never told you go out and vote for this guy, go out and vote for that guy. I don't do that. Because in fact, I don't have a lot of faith in the American political system. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think that there's any evidence out there to say that politics has been the solution for black people. Although politics, I know it plays a part, and I'm not closed off to that. I'm just saying that you can't really do politics in America unless you get your economics right. If you're trying to play politics without economics, then that makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. So ultimately, when you talk about what's going on with this, black people get politically pimped on a regular basis. We have these people that I call political bosses or political overseers. And what they do is they don't really necessarily always serve black people. They sell black people. They build up this massive support base in the black community. Al Sharpton is probably the best one ever to do this. And they take that collection, they take that group of people and they go to some, Democrat leading member of the Democratic Party or whatever. And they say, hey, I own 100,000 Negroes. I can deliver their votes on election day if you give me blank. Right. And this sort of political boss model, it's done in not just in black communities, it's done in Italian communities, it's done in a lot of communities. And I really think ultimately you should be your own boss. I just believe, I don't want to be a boss. I'm not here to tell you to vote for anybody. I want you to vote for the person that works best for you. And I would say at the end of the day, when I looked at what Black Lives Matter was doing, making all this money on behalf of the suffering of black people, I really felt that was just a flawed process to begin with. So the lawsuits and the infighting, that none of that surprises me one bit. My heart goes out to the people who had to file this suit because I believe that this suit was filed by people who are pissed off, legitimately pissed off. They're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, we did all the damn work. We were out there doing all the marching, all the rioting, all the whatever it was, we didn't do a lot of rioting. I don't know where those rioters came from. I have theories about that, but still, we were out there. They're like, wait a minute, we were out here doing all this work and bringing attention to these issues. And when the money came pouring in, you took the money and went in the back room and told us that our services were no longer needed. And so my view is pretty basic. The people that are doing the work should have a say in what happens with the money. And I'd be really curious to know where the documented evidence is from Patrice Cullors and the others who helped start the organization. Where's the evidence that the people who were out marching in the streets, doing the work, doing the legwork, that they were also involved in decisions about where the money was going? All I kept hearing was this word that rings my ears every time I hear it because I'm a financial guy. The word is transparency. Transparency. I kept hearing them say there's a lack of transparency, a lack of transparency. That basically means that you took the money in the back, you closed the curtains, locked the door, and said, don't you worry about it. We'll tell you what to do with the money when we make our decision. And that's interesting to me because that's kind of how a pimp operates. And then next thing you know, there's these questions about these $5 million houses, $3 million houses that people are buying and all this other stuff. Well, those questions wouldn't be there if there was more transparency. And I really would love to know what was going on with that. So anyway, before I move on, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, share, subscribe if you haven't done it yet. BoyceWatkins.com. That's my website. It's right there. Also, just as a reminder, don't forget the All Black National Convention's coming up October 28th through the 30th in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you are B1 and part of the B1 community, you have to be there. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be in Charlotte. And also, you can be a vendor and all this other stuff if you'd like to be a vendor. There's no corporate sponsorship, no government money allowed. But, so it's supported by the community, which gives us the right and the ability to say what we want to say. That's why I can invite people like my brother, Rizza Islam, and not worry about the backlash. But we also have people there like billionaire Mike Roberts and others that can show you all kinds of stuff involving how to build wealth, how to build strong families, things like that. So just go to BoyceWatkins.com. And when you get your hotel, don't pay the full price. Tell them you're with the All Black National Convention. They will cut your hotel rate by about 60% or 50 to 60%. Okay. So don't pay full price. All right. So anyway, let me keep going. So here I'm going to read this article from The Hill. This article in The Hill talks about the lawsuit. And it says that a Black Lives Matter exec is accused of stealing $10 million in a lawsuit. So here's what it says. It says Black Lives Matter leaders on Friday sued an executive of the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, on charges of siphoning $10 million in donations to the organization for use as his own personal piggy bank. Walter Mosley, an attorney representing Black Lives Matter Grassroots, or BLM Grassroots, a separate entity from GNF. That right there was kind of strange. I really thought it was strange that first you have Black Lives Matter as one organization, then you got these separate entities. You're breaking off to the Global Network Foundation, which seems to control all the money, and then you got Grassroots, which I guess is like those are the field Negroes, the ones supposed to go out and do all the work. I don't know. I don't know all the details, but this seems awfully weird to me. They filed the lawsuit in Los Angeles County Superior Court against the Global Network Foundation and GNF board member Shalomia Bowers, as well as his consulting firm. Now, I don't know Mr. Bowers at all. I'd be curious to hear what his position is on this, and I'm going to keep reading. But this is what I'm seeing, and this is not the first time you've seen blowups within Black Lives Matter about the money. There's been a long conversation for about the last 2 years about what they were doing with all that money. So it's kind of interesting. The initial complaint seeking financial relief and a court order halting GNF's use of the BLM identity accuses Bowers of becoming a turned usurper and charging fees for Black Lives Matter donors, which he then used for his own personal funds. When more than 300 movement leaders, as well as BLM founders, insisted that he resign from GNF, the complaint reads, he continued to betray the public trust by self-dealing and breaching his fiduciary duties. So fiduciary means he wasn't representing the interests of the organization. He's representing his own interests. Now, remember, this is a lawsuit. And I think that with lawsuits or any legal situation, there's always, innocent until proven guilty. Also, remember, lawsuits are about he said, she said. Lawyers are really good at making things sound the way they need them to sound. And so I'd be curious to see what happens when all this is sorted through in court. So Melina Abdullah, a founder of the BLM Los Angeles chapter and co-director of the BLM Grassroots, held a press conference last week announcing the lawsuit. Quote, Global Network Foundation has been taken away from the people who built it, she said. Global Network Foundation is now led by a highly paid consultant who pays himself upwards of $2 million in a single year. Again, just based on what I know, I just don't understand how it was allowed for the Global Network Foundation to sort of just take all the money and have this whole separate wing of Black Lives Matter. I'd be really curious to see how that decision was made and who made that decision, who gave the final say on this. So Abdullah said Patrisse Cullors, a BLM member, had created a transition plan to transfer control of GNF over to the Grassroots organization, but GNF has locked her out of social media accounts and is amplifying messages she does not agree with. So even Patrisse Cullors, who was one of the individuals that was really being sort of implicated and dragged a little bit over the purchase of some multi-million-dollar houses, things like that. Even she is now locked out, and they say the Global Network Foundation's pushing out messages that she doesn't agree with. In a statement following the press conference, the GNF board of directors denied the allegations, saying they were, quote, disappointed and dismayed at the false narrative spread by Abdullah and other BLM leaders who are accused of taking $10,000, who they accuse of taking $10,000 per month in personal stipends. Quote, we as Black people and Black-led organizations cannot continue spending all of our precious time and energy fighting and tearing each other down, the statement reads. We have no desire and little time to put private business out in the street. However, Melina Abdullah, BLMGR, and its leadership seem intent on fighting publicly about their desire to control the entirety of Black Lives Matter. So what I'm reading so far, what's abundantly clear here is that this is just messy and it's kind of sad. Messy can happen, I guess, when you talk about managing this much money and this much attention. Again, I think that things changed. I think that agendas shifted when there was so much money involved, when they realized that Black suffering is a multi-billion-dollar commodity. When they realized that Black death is a multi-million-dollar asset that they can profit from, I just think people's agendas changed. And what's really unfortunate is that there's not some sort of agreement on what the proper use of those funds should be. In fact, it makes it worse than most other charitable efforts. I mean, most charity isn't all that effective, to be honest with you. There's a documentary called Poverty Inc. Poverty Inc. Talks about how all this money is raised by using poor African nations as a video prop. They take a picture of the little kid with the swollen stomach because he hasn't eaten for so long, and he's got flies on his face, and they put those pictures, and they push this content all throughout the world, and they make money from this content. They make money just like you make money on Netflix. They get people to make donations because they feel sorry for the poor little starving kids in Africa. And then what happens is all this money gets raised, and then they don't even give the money to the people that are in the videos or their families or their communities. They take the money, they go spend it with another white person who will go, they'll say, oh, the poor little kids in Africa need new shoes. So they'll pay their European friend, $200 million to go make shoes, and they'll dump a bunch of shoes in the poor African country and continue the process all over again. So effectively what they're doing is they're using Black suffering as a way to fuel their own economy. It is almost like the way water can create electricity. Water power generates electricity. Well, you generate economic energy that circulates throughout their economy and not through yours. And you just become a resource. You become a resource that gets utilized and wasted and used up like everything else. So the suffering of Black folks, the death of Black men, became this profitable rallying cry that allowed them to go and make all this money from corporations that are trying to find a way to pay them off to get rid of whatever white guilt that they're dealing with because because America's starting to kind of confront some of its racism. And I think what's frustrating for many Black folks is that we ain't got nothing to do with it. We ain't got nothing to do with it. It's like laying in a man's bed and sleeping with his wife, and telling him to watch, saying, I want to heighten your sex life because I'm gonna come sleep with your wife. I'm gonna make your sex life amazing by sleeping with your wife. And he ain't got nothing to do with it. He's just sitting there watching. So basically, Black folks don't have anything to do with it. Like, Black people are sitting here watching the liberal elites, Black, white, and otherwise, all get together and basically deal with Black folks the same way they deal with saving the whales, or the way they deal with saving some Siberian tiger or something. The tiger isn't involved in the decision making. The tiger doesn't get the resources that are raised. The protection of the tiger is something that they sort of take over in a kind of paternalistic fashion, where they sort of feel like, okay, we know what's best for this tiger. So basically, for Black people, they just look at you like you are not relevant in the decision-making process. They know what's best for you, and you don't know nothing. That's why, in many cases, they don't spend any time talking to the actual leaders that are on the ground that have been doing the damn work since day one. That's the problem. I want to know how many grassroots leaders, a lot of y'all are in the community now. A lot of y'all are running community centers, getting no money. A lot of you are running Black-owned businesses, getting no money. A lot of y'all are in the hood negotiating gang truces and getting no, like Tyrone Muhammad in the South Side of Chicago. I'm talking about real people that I've met who are really out here doing the work, who are really out here helping the community, can't get a nickel of resources because these liberal elites are collecting money on your behalf. Every time you go through something where you're struggling and you're suffering, they show up for a couple of days, they hold a march and a rally, raise hell, burn down a couple businesses, and then they go collect a big check from the local corporation, and that money gets disappeared. You never see that money again. So they're using you. They're using all of your pain and suffering as a way to generate something for themselves, to create not just the money part, but it's like maybe they're creating these feel good emotions. They kind of get to like kind of give each other these intellectual orgasms, feeling like they're really doing something good for the world, when really, when you go back to the hood, nothing is really different. Nothing has changed. The poverty's still there. These liberal districts all across the country where you've been voting Democrat every election since forever, and nothing's getting better. I'm not saying the Republicans are better, but my Lord Jesus, if that's all you got, if all you got from me as a solution for Black people is Democrat or Republican, then that means either you're not that smart or all hope is lost. I don't know which one it is. Either you're not that smart or all hope is lost. Either way, I'm backing out of the building. I'm not going to play that game with you. I'm not going to play that Democrat Republican game with you, because I know that's a losing game. I'm not going to play that game with you where you sit here and you try to convince me that Trump getting reelected is the worst thing to ever happen to Black people. I'm just not going to play that game with you. The game I'm going to play with you is this. Here's the game I'm going to play with you when you talk about true Black empowerment. You know what game I want to play? Here's the game I want to play. I want to play the freedom game. The freedom game is where we say, okay, what are some models of freedom and self-sufficiency that have been employed by Black people and other groups around the world that have actually been successful? When we play the freedom game, I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say, okay, you're telling me that it sucks because the public schools won't allow black people to teach critical race theory because the school districts are racist and Republicans. So, okay, yeah, I get that. But the game I'm going to play with you is I'm going to say, okay, well, then why aren't we raising money to build our own damn schools? Why are we handing our children over to people who hate them to be their primary educators? What brain cell do you have in your toxic little mind that makes you think that somehow handing your children your most valuable resource, your multi-trillion-dollar asset, over to your oppressor is going to end well for you? Are you surprised when your child comes out of that school and they're 100% European? Are you surprised when your child graduates from high school and still can't read? Are you surprised when your kid comes out brainwashed? Well, you did it. It wasn't just the teachers, it was you. So that's the game I'm going to play with you. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to say, well, then why would you send your child to be educated by somebody who hates him? That don't make much sense. White people don't do that. They don't say, hey, we're going to send our kids to Boyce Watkins Academy so he can learn about being pro-black. He can teach them that black people are the best and black people are amazing and black people can dominate. And I want my child to want to be a black man by hanging out with Boyce all day. They're not going to do that. They're not stupid. The game I'll play with you is the game I'll say, okay, why don't we go study the things that they don't teach you in school? Like, why don't we go study O.W. Gurley and Black Wall Street? And why don't we go study how the people on Black Wall Street had 21 grocery stores in a community that 100 years later only has one? Why don't we go study how, if you look at the businesses that they had in Black Wall Street, they had every kind of business you could think of, from the hair salons to the candy shops to the movie theaters to the banks to the hospitals to the hotels. They had all that. Why are we not studying that? But no, you want to rely on Miss Sally from the suburbs to teach your child critical race theory. Don't talk to me unless you know how to talk about a real damn solution. I don't want to talk about this nonsense no more. I'm not going to have the same conversation we've been having for 50 years, ever since they duped you into thinking the integration was doing you a favor. You were never, ever meant to benefit by being given the privilege of going out to the suburbs to give your money away to white people. There was never a point where that was designed to benefit you. So just stop it. Stop playing games. Let me keep going. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I want to remind everybody real quick, I have to do this periodically just to make sure nobody gets taken, because the platform's kind of big, and I appreciate all your support. I really do. We have over 1 million subscribers on 3 different YouTube channels. I put my subscribers on different channels because I don't want to be on one place, because they like to shut black people down when they actually have solutions. So I have to be careful. But either way, there are fake accounts out here everywhere. So if you go to Instagram and you follow me at the Real Boyce Watkins, look for that blue check mark. There are fake accounts on TikTok. There are fake accounts on YouTube, Facebook, all that. And these people are very aggressive. They'll message you and tell you to inbox them and all this other stuff. So if you see these accounts, if you could, please report them. I would really appreciate it. I don't want anybody to get hurt. Also, just to mention this, we do have financial flashcards for children. We designed them specifically for our kids. This is one of the ways we raise money to continue the mission. So if you're interested in getting some excellent financial flashcards for your kids, feel free to go to financialflashcards.com. The URL's right there on the screen. I hope you'll take a look. I think your kids are really going to like them. It's going to make a big difference for them. All right. So here's more. I'm going to read a little bit more about this Black Lives Matter lawsuit. It says here that Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Colors created the original hashtag for Black Lives Matter, which eventually sprouted into local chapters that make up the BLM grassroots. BLM GNF, which is a global network foundation, was incorporated in 2017 primarily to be a fundraising component of the movement. So I guess GNF was supposed to raise the money. That's what it was. After the death of George Floyd in 2020, the BLM movement gained renewed national and international attention, but the organization's finances have since then come under increased scrutiny, particularly where a chunk of the $90 million raised in donations in 2020 has gone. And in late 2020, a group of 10 original BLM local chapters announced that they were severing ties with the Global Network Foundation over a lack of transparency. There's that word again. Transparency. Transparency. When you're raising money from other people in a donation capacity, you have to have transparency. Now, if you are running a private business where you're selling chicken strips and lemonade, you ain't got to tell nobody nothing about what you did with that money. All you can say, look, you got your chicken, you got your lemonade. What I do with that money at that point is my business. Just like I'm not going to ask you what you did with the chicken and lemonade I sold you. That's a different transaction. That's a different situation. But when I say, hey, donate money to me and I'm going to go save black people, and you donate to me because you believe that I'm going to go save black people and I give you nothing in return, then I should probably be able to come back to you and say, this is how we use the money to try to save black people. This is what we did with our money. There's a big question with Black Lives Matter over what happened with the money. A lot of people are wondering where that $90 million went. And I think that there was more money. There was so much more money raised. So it says here, New York Magazine also reported earlier this year that BLM executives bought a $6 million home with money donated to GNF. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this other article here. Hit the thumbs up button while I do this. So this is, okay, so this is an AP Associated Press exclusive. This is where they claim they opened up about the finances. Now, this is from February 23rd, 2021. The Associated Press says the foundation, widely seen as a steward of the Black Lives Matter movement, says it took in just over $90 million last year, and that was just up through February 2021. So they probably collected more money since then. The Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation is now building infrastructure to catch up to the speed of its funding and plans to use its endowment to become known for more than protests after Black Americans die at the hands of police or vigilantes. Quote, we want to uplift Black joy and liberation, not just Black death. We want to see Black communities thriving, not just surviving. Okay, that sounds nice. This marks the first time in the movement's nearly 8-year history that BLM leaders have revealed a detailed look at their finances. The foundation's coffers and influence grew immensely following the death of George Floyd, blah, blah, blah. That growth also caused long-standing tensions to boil over between some of the movement's grassroots organizers and national leaders. The former went public last fall with grievances about financial transparency, decision-making, and accountability. The foundation said it had committed $21.7 million in grant funding to official and unofficial Black Lives Matter chapters, as well as 30 Black-led local organizations. It ended 2020 with a balance of more than $60 million after spending nearly a quarter of its assets on the grant funds and other charitable giving. In its report, the BLM Foundation said that individual donations via its main fundraising platform averaged $30.76. More than 10% of the donations were recurring. The report does not state who gave the money in 2020, and lawyers declined to name prominent donors. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. When they decline to name the prominent donors, it could be because the donors just want privacy, and that's a possibility. But it's also because many of these donors are probably white. Let's just keep it 100. Let's just be real. And it's nothing. I'm not saying that there's anything inherently wrong with getting money from white people. The question that should always be asked, though, is what strings are attached? What did you trade? What are you giving up? So it doesn't mean. So again, I want to make this 100% clear. I'm not in any way undermining or attacking Black-owned businesses and organizations out here. Those of you that are listening that do business with people who are not Black or get money from people who are not Black. I'm not saying that. You can have customers who are not Black. You can have funders who are not Black. You can have investors who are not Black. I'm really curious. I'm really encouraging you to be very careful and thoughtful about who maintains control. Because what happens is that they're typically with most organizations, like if you look at like say a BET, there's a point where there's what I call the black line. The black line is where you say, okay, we're not willing to go over that line because that undermines the integrity of what I believe as a Black person. I'm not going to do that or whatever. Right. And sometimes you hit that black line and you say, I don't want to go that far, or I don't want to do that thing. And if you don't have proper leverage and appropriate control in your organization or in your corporation, then they will push you over that black line. Or every time it's time for you to stand up, somebody tells you to sit your Black ass right back down and do what I say. And so BET, for example, is an organization that is constantly crossing the black line. BET knows that they do lots of content that is not healthy for the Black community. BET knows that they promote lots of ideas that are not good for the Black community. BET knows that the promotion of drug using, drug selling, and drug addiction is literally a multi-trillion-dollar wealth destruction in the Black community in terms of creating generations of pain and horror for Black people that we have lived through for far too long. BET knows these things. They know all this. But you know why they can't do anything about it? It's because their daddy is telling them what to do. They have no power. They have very little say in deciding what's going to really work. The final decision maker in every decision BET makes is which artist or which show or which message is going to make us the most money. And that's your problem. The problem is not that BET has partners that are not Black, right? That's not the fundamental issue. The problem is that you don't have any control, any power. Because remember this, the same way you might partner with white people, remember white people are partnering with you. And so if they're partnering with you and you're partnering with them, then why is it that you're always the one getting pimped? Why are you always the one on the short end of the stick? So business partnerships and economic partnerships are like a marriage. Pay attention. Give me a yes if you understand what I'm saying. Give me a yes if you get what I'm saying. It's like a marriage. Marriage is not inherently bad. And marriage doesn't mean you're going to get abused. But there are good marriages and there are bad marriages. And in many cases, because Black folks show up to the table with a whole bunch of talent and a whole bunch of work ethic, but not a whole lot of capital, we're the ones that end up getting pimped. Integration was not a terrible idea, but you came into it trying to be a second-class citizen. You came into it as the hooker, not the pimp. You came into it without any form of consciousness about what this meant in terms of ownership and control. You didn't negotiate properly. That's the problem with integration. The problem is not, oh, we hate white people and we shouldn't be around white folks. I don't believe all that. I'm not into that stuff. No, it's that I don't want to get pimped. I don't want somebody telling me what kind of person I need to be. And so with Black Lives Matter, this is another thing about the agenda of Black Lives Matter that I saw a lot of folks who are economically intelligent, they were very concerned about. They saw Black Lives Matter as an organization that's not necessarily bad in itself. It wasn't necessarily doing bad work. Some of the work they were doing was very good. Some of the issues they were highlighting were relevant issues. But let's just be clear. Black Lives Matter really wasn't and isn't an organization that is designed to stimulate possibility and opportunity and success and power for all corners of the Black community. Black Lives Matter was basically a Black version of the LGBT movement. That's what it was. And they were more gay than they were Black. That's different from being more Black than you are gay. Like James Baldwin was more Black than he was gay. That's why when they asked him about being gay, he said, why does my sexuality matter? And that's not the point. The point is that I'm Black and this is what I'm going through. Madam President is more Black than she is gay. She's gay. She has no shame in that. But at the same time, that's not the first thing you learn about Madam President or the first thing you learn about James Baldwin. You see, so ultimately, though, with Black Lives Matter, they flipped that. And so when we did that deep analysis and we went to the blacklivesmatter.org website, y'all remember that? I don't know if y'all remember that, but I did a whole podcast about it. We read it line by line, their whole mission. And their whole mission was a whole lot of gay, trans, queer this, queer that, gay, women's rights, this and everything else, which is all fine and good. But you didn't see much of anything there about the Black family. And you didn't see anything there about supporting the Black man, other than holding police accountable when a Black man gets shot. That's about as far as they went when it came to the issues that many of us care about. So ultimately, what I will say is that with Black Lives Matter, I think it's very important to understand it. If you put the financial issues to the side, you got to understand what Black Lives Matter really was or what it is. Black Lives Matter it's an LGBT Marxist movement. That's why all the leaders were trained Marxists. It's an LGBT Marxist movement in Black skin. Doesn't make them bad people, but you need to know what it is before you go signing on the dotted line. So as far as the money situation goes, here's the deal. When you're talking about really getting money for Black people, there's so many ways Black people get economically screwed and economically duped. I was sitting there talking today on Black Wall Street. I'm in Tulsa. I was talking to a brother on Black Wall Street named Cody, who was doing a little tour. Cody's a smart brother. I really enjoy talking to him. And one thing Cody talked about was something Dr. Claude Anderson talks about all the time. He talked about, um, things like the five civilized tribes with the Native Americans. He talked about how the Native Americans, they had the five so-called five civilized tribes, and the only reason they were called the five civilized tribes was because they actually promoted slavery. That's what it was. The ones that were quote unquote uncivilized were the ones that didn't have slaves. The so-called five civilized tribes supported slavery. That's why they were called civilized. And he talked about how there were billions of dollars in reparations that black people were supposed to get for slavery, that there were lots of black people who should have gotten a lot of this money that goes to Native American tribes. And they had something called the Dawes Rolls, the Daw D A, I think it's DAWES. Look it up. Dr. Claude Anderson's talked about this because he sued over the 1866 Indian Treaty. And with the Dawes Rolls, you could pay $5 and get on the roll, and get somebody taken off the roll. So they could take a black person off the roll and put themselves on the roll so they could get all the benefits, all the massive economic benefits that came with being a Native American. So this is where that term $5 Indian comes from, because there are lots of really just lily white people in Oklahoma and other places who claim to be Native American because they get economic benefits, and many of those benefits are supposed to go to you. And so my point is to say that you've been getting ripped off since the beginning of time. I mean, you've been getting ripped off, every single year since you've been in this country. And the only way that we're really gonna, as a community, be able to really fight this thing, fight this battle, and really, really get the freedom that we deserve, get the power that we think that we deserve to have, is if we learn the importance of economic strength. If we never learn about the significance and the relevance of economic warfare in a racist capitalist society, then you will always lose. This whole Black Lives Matter movement, it smells of money everywhere. I smell, you know what I smell? I smell that there was money that backed it. I smell the money that was collected during the whole protest. I smell that the money didn't go to the places it was supposed to go, but yet you're being used as the prop. So it's no, in some ways, it's no different from hip hop music. You made all the best music in the world, but somebody else somehow got all the money. Well, why? Because you didn't understand the essence of economic warfare. You don't have the economic intelligence all the time to be able to ask basic questions like, okay, where's the money coming from? Who's paying for this? Who's going to benefit from this? And how are we going to get our cut? If we had said that, if we had simply said that during integration, when white folks are saying, okay, we want you to shop at our stores. Okay, cool. But how are we going to get our cut? We want you to support our businesses too. Okay, well, how are we going to get our cut? You going to support our businesses also? Or are we just supposed to just go buy from you and that's it? We want you to come work at our factories. Okay, great, sure. Okay, well, how are we gonna get our cut? Which factories are we gonna own? Which businesses are we gonna own? Because we can't come in as nothing but renters, consumers, and employees. We're not trying to do all of that. We're not trying to just be on the other side of the pimp, and we need to be on the power side too. So where are we gonna get our cut? And so I think that with Black Lives Matter, that's what I looked at. And I said, you're using the suffering of black people, you're using the trauma of black people to generate $100 million or more for all these different whatever things that you're trying to do. Where do we get our cut? Where are black people that I know, the ones who are really doing the work, the ones who are out here raising the kids, supporting the gang members, who are out here running the community centers, who are running the schools on a shoestring budget, like schools like Freedom Home Academy International in Chicago, that's educating children 10 times better than Chicago public school system ever will. When are they going to get their cut? And if they can't answer that question, then they're not for you. And that to me is true trickle down economics. That to me is what a good movement would represent. I would like to see those independent black owned schools. Cause I told y'all from the jump, white folks ain't got no business educating your kids anyway. This is not anti-white. This is pro-black. I don't have conversations about how the public school system won't let us teach critical race theory. I don't know how to talk to those people. I don't even approach when I want to educate black children. You know what I do? I say, okay, how are we going to get another 100,000 subscribers onto the YouTube channel so I can talk directly to the parents? That's what I do. I don't try to go to the school system. I'm not trying to get my books in the school system. Well, boys, if you do this and you can get the kids at the schools to read your books and go through your Black Millionaires of Tomorrow. Yeah, okay, if you want to try, go for it. But I already understand something you don't understand, apparently. I understand that white folks don't like people like me. I get it. I understand the history of racism. I get it. I understand that an intelligent black man is a bigger threat than a gangster or a thug or a hood rat ever could be. I know these things. I understand the menace to society I've become by being a black man who knows how to ask the right questions. You somehow think that if we keep wiggling around with this stupid, failed, flawed system, that somehow we can get a couple of crumbs of what we want. I'm not going for the crumbs. I'm going for the big piece of chicken. In fact, I want to own the whole goddamn dinner table. Period. So at the end of the day, what that means is, excuse my French, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cuss, but that's exactly how I feel. And here's the thing. Here's what I'm saying. You're gonna have to go back. If you really want to learn how to have power in this country, I encourage you to go back 100 years. Go back to a time when you had ancestors who wasn't getting shit from the government. Go back to a time where you had ancestors who had to survive lynchings, who had to who didn't have job opportunities like you have. I need you to go back to a time where they couldn't get corporate jobs and student loans and all the other nonsense that's got you in an economic trap. I need you to go back and I need you to study. And you don't need a white person's permission to do this. They don't have to teach it in public schools for you to learn this. You can pick up a book. Dr. Claude Anderson at powernomics.com has a whole bunch of these books written for you already. I need you to go and study the blueprint of the black folks at Black Wall Street and 100 other towns across this country who were able to build 100 times more businesses than we can with literally 1/50th of the resources that we have right now. How in the hell did they build? Go look at the list. I'm in fact on my YouTube channel, I'm gonna put up a list. I'm gonna show y'all all the businesses that they had, the dentist offices, the bakeries, the grocery stores, the skating rinks, all the stuff that they had everything. They literally had everything in Black Wall Street. And I'm sitting here just thinking, why in the world do we got all these damn college graduates, all these Negroes with degrees, thousands of them, thousands of black people graduating from college every year, can't build a damn thing, can't create nothing, can't sustain nothing? Where does that come from? It's because you and I'm going to say you and I, because I don't want to make you feel bad. I'm not trying to make nobody feel bad. But we've been trained, we've been duped. We've been duped into becoming dependent on the system. That's your problem. You've been duped. They tricked you. They got you addicted to this. You like a crackhead. A crackhead needs the crack dealer. Like you can't survive any other way. So ultimately, I just really think that if you're learning what Black excellence looks like, you need to go back at least 70 years. Go study Black Wall Street and ask yourself that basic question. How in the hell did black men like O.W. Gurley start hundreds of self-sustainable, very wealthy businesses when he had nothing to work with, at least not compared to what we got today? Y'all got billionaire rappers that ain't built a damn thing. Ain't created one single damn job except a couple jobs for their homies. That's all they know how to do. So that means you got the wrong skill set, black people. You must get the right skill set. And then at that point, what will happen is your activism, will flow out of that. The Black Lives Matter movement, unfortunately, it comes off to me as a movement funded by white liberals to utilize black energy and black trauma as a way to fund and support white liberal ideologies. That's what Black Lives Matter was all about. I'm not dissing it. I'm not dissing the people in it. I love the people in it because I know them and I'm not dogging the people that are in it, but you got played. I'm just telling you the truth. Your movement is going to be the one that comes from your economic base. When you are sitting there with other business owners and decide that there's an issue that matters to you and to your families, and you create the movement around that, that's the movement that you're going to be able to get behind, and it's going to have to be funded by you. If it ain't funded by you, then chances are it won't benefit you. That's just my 2 cents. So anyway, I hope this was taken in the spirit that it was intended. This is not, we don't have time to sit around bashing Black Lives Matter, the leaders and all that. I mean, we kind of did a little bit, but I want to try to at least be somewhat fair and say, look, I don't know who did, what's going on. I'm just telling you guys what I see based on what I see. And I would just say that in generally speaking, For us to really learn who we are, we got to go way back. And I'm not talking about the nonsense, the crappy Black history they teach you in these public schools. Of course, they're going to teach you irrelevant Black history. Why would they teach you the things that you really need to know to be powerful? You can go study Marcus Garvey on your own. You can go study Malcolm X and his real ideas on your own. You could study Dr. King's core ideas on your own. When he said, when he talked about integrating into a burning house, when he talked about we're here in Washington to pick up our check, when Dr. King started to change and started to become more like Malcolm toward the end of his life, where you can go study Black Wall Street on your own. So you don't need these people to teach you nothing. You're not a child. We can do this. That's my 2 cents. That's what I believe, and I'm sticking to it. Okay, guys. So I'm going to get out of here. I hope that this conversation was helpful to you, and it was great talking to you as usual. And I just want to remind everybody also, if you ever want to get notifications on text when I go live, feel free to text the word "voice" to 31996. Text "voice" to 31996. That's right there on the screen. Also, if you want to take a look at our financial flashcards for kids, you can feel free to go to financialflashcards.com. That URL is on the screen also. And last but not least, don't forget the All Black National Convention happens October 28th through the 30th in Charlotte, North Carolina. And freedom is on the menu, and it's going to be awesome. It's always a lot of fun. You're going to learn a lot. And don't forget, when you book your hotel, though, at the downtown Charlotte, you might want to book it now because it's going to fill up. Tell them you're with our group, and they'll cut your rate by over 50%. So you don't have to pay full price. All right, guys. Well, have a good night. God bless you. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care now. Peace.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boyce TV. Here we are.